Hi everybody. Welcome to our webinar. Today we want to talk about spontaneous speech. This is obviously a very complex process and we're not going to solve everything in 30 minutes. But what we want you to leave with is more confidence and hope that it can happen quite naturally with just a little bit of help. Claudia, our speaker for today, has worked in hospitals, daycares, educational settings for the last 40 years in France, Canada, USA. I want to add India in there for the training that you did over there. Her university studies led her to develop an expertise in environmental enrichment and its impact on brain development. Those two fields of neuroscience are the fields that show how the brain can change as a response to changes in the environment. And so what Claudia did was take the protocols used in lab animals where they saw that enriching the environment helped their brains compensate for a wide range of brain issues and translated that into a program that families could use, and that's how Claudia created sensory enrichment therapy. So sensory enrichment therapy is an evidence-based modality to treat the core symptoms of brain disorders by inducing an elevated state of neuroplasticity and helping the brain to treat itself. The therapy is currently validated with randomized controlled trials for autism and Rett syndrome with additional studies in the way. And on a personal note, Claudia is my mom, and she's a grandmother to 15 grandchildren. And as you can see from the picture I'm not showing, but I'm about to show it now, that she is a fan of Disneyland. Now, only true fans of Disneyland will know why this picture is about Disneyland. So, Claudia, now that you're all embarrassed, the floor is yours to talk to our families about spontaneous speech development.
Right. So, and as you are doing it, I absolutely am not at all embarrassed about being a fan of Disneyland. I'm in fact very proud of it. So, the first step and the first beautiful story I want to share with the families today is the story of a little girl in Sudan. It's Central Africa, maybe a little bit to the west or to the east. Well, it's over there, very far. She is 4 years old and she is completely nonverbal. And the parents have decided to do the program offered by Mendability, sensory enrichment therapy with a little girl. After only, I believe, 6 weeks, she came to her dad and expressed perfectly well exactly what she wanted. So it's not a real sentence, right, is it? But everything is there. Daddy, TV, Peppa Pig, and not the small TV, no, the big TV, and I need help with the remote. This is, yeah.
Can you explain how many words she had up to that point?
Before she started Mendability, she had maybe 2. And they were convenience words, and we will talk about that. She had the words that you need to have to survive as a skill. Mm-hmm. But through sensory enrichment, she developed a very good awareness of herself and how to say the things. Obviously, these are words that are said in the family, but she knew how to use them. So what we want to do is help our kids on the spectrum with autism or other issues that are unfortunately leading to be nonverbal to go through the stages of the development of speech. All the kids or young adults or adults go through all those stages that you see on the screen. And one question that I have asked a few times to families I work with or generally with communication with the families is, has your child stopped on one of those? And I believe, Kim, you have a survey that is flowing, and families can answer and help us understand and help you.
Yeah. I was going to do the survey afterwards at the other slide, but no, it's still a good time. Give me 1 second. I'm going to launch it. So for those of, I'm about to click a button to start a poll. That poll is in 2 parts. Part number 1 is the 5 first steps of speech development. And we'd like you to vote on the step where your child is stuck. It could be 1 or more. And if your child is past those, don't vote yet. There is part 2, okay? So I'll give you a few seconds, because what we're going to do, what Claudia is going to do is when we see which one of those steps seems to be the one where most of you have children stuck, then she will talk about how we can maybe help nudge them in onto the next speech development milestone. So I'll just leave that on for another few seconds, and then I'll show part 2, where we show the next 5 steps of speech development. So again, if your child is not stuck at any one of those, don't vote yet.
And as families are voting, I wanted to explain a little bit why you definitely said we can help if we know, and also help the families, the professionals who are listening, realize that some things that appear as a catastrophe, like the child now is spitting all the time, and everybody works at stopping the spitting because, yeah, it's not really appropriate, and we have all kinds of descriptive words to talk about that. So we want to be aware that all these stages are part of a plan, and the least we sort of notice or tell the kid we notice about spitting, biting, mouthing, then the child will be able to move on. Those have a physiological answer. You need to control saliva production and circulation in your mouth in order to pronounce words. It's part of it. So playing with saliva is suddenly appearing. Then you have the discovering the mouth and also fine motor. There is a very tight link between fine motor of the hands and fine motor of the mouth. And very recently, there were new studies showing that we can observe babies and how they play and use that as a tool for diagnosis of autism. So this is really a very serious matter. You want to observe and be happy about that stage that is opening to the next and eventually get to the words that we all want, right? So how is their voting going now?
It looks like the step at which most children are stuck right now are the vocalizing stage.
Well, it's a very good thing, unless, and we will mention that in a later slide, this vocalization is an imitation of what the child is hearing, obviously, either from other children or from other adults, parents or professionals. We will discuss that very shortly. So being vocalizing can be going from screaming or almost singing. This is so crucial because this is when the child discovers he has a voice and he is practicing listening to his own voice. So it's a wonderful step, and it's almost the last step before the words. And
so would you say when I read vocalizing as a step of speech development, and I think about all of our clients, I'm hearing 8-year-old boys, 12-year-old girls doing those kinds of vocalizations. Is that what we're talking about?
We are talking about any noise that the child is practicing. And there is this also this difference of opinion from people who observe. And I have heard parents tell me he or she has a lot of vocal stems. When I ask a description, I get what you have shown, like the lion or a siren, like all kinds of sounds that don't look like conversation and are not really pleasant, but are repetitive. Repetitive may be because you noticed and you paid attention. So the child is just, oh, that one is successful. I'm going to do it a lot. That can be echolalia, which is wonderful in the sense that it's made of words. So the child is really practicing communication and pronunciation. So basically any sound that the child is producing is to prepare speech.
And this slide is going to come up later on in the presentation, and I think we're going to talk about maybe some games, some enrichment activities that we can do to address that. Another item of housekeeping I neglected to mention at the beginning of the presentation is we've got a Q&A. There's a way for you to ask questions during this presentation. When Claudia is done with her formal presentation, we'll switch to the questions that you submit.
And that's almost my favorite time. It's really when we communicate with the families. But I want to finish with this little thing about biting, which is very unpleasant, which is part of the development of awareness of the face and the jaw. So you don't want it. Try to not scream too high if the child is biting you, but it is part of the development. So our title today was the difference between the words that are felt and the word that I heard. We have two examples here of typically developing kids. The first one is not his picture, but is my fifth child. Nonverbal till like not a word until he was 10 months old. And I'm in the kitchen and he comes to me and says, more yogurt. The second one is an example that is so old. It's my older sister who spoke at the age of 4 and no words before that. She found an aspirin pill on the counter, ate it, and then walked to her mom and said, Mom, more candy. And she said it in French for you to know. So, maman, plus de bonbons, s'il te plaît. So these are the things that the typically developing kid is going to do. Is going to express, okay, I want this, I need that, I like it, give it to me. How does the kid suddenly appear as able to express? Because these are pieces of communication that are felt. And they are very different from what the kids with nonverbal and start speech therapy and all kinds of helping therapy when he's very young. The children who are taught speech as a skill are going to have more efficient words. And same comment I did about kids around the world who learn all these words. Here we have the communication between mom and the child. And I would like a raise of hands that I will not see for who has at one point told the child, this is the plane that's coming to the airport. We are having fun. We speak baby to baby. So the baby keeps speaking baby, but this is the emotional content. What is behind the word that we find the kid anchoring to that word and then develop more? Definitely listening and all the element of conversation. What we know about babies with autism that are diagnosed later with autism is they do not connect visually. They do not have eye contact. They don't smile when you smile at them. They do not respond to body posture or different tonality because those babies come with the issue that is making so many people on the spectrum, it makes their life a terrible distress. This is a sensory processing issue. Infants are basically overwhelmed by any sound that comes and is processed the same way. There is a visual, there is a sound, there is a tactile. All those sensory information are processed by the brain the same way. There is no ability in those children to just focus on one thing. So the deficit is there very early, which leads to the fact that the kid may not have words at the age of 2, right? So first step, we want to help all the kids, whatever the age, and just starting working with a young man who is 18 and is not speaking yet. We are going to have the same process. We want this boy to go through those stages. If one is, for now, the place where he's stuck, we are going to help him with exercises of sensory enrichment, help him move on and continue towards what is going to become the first word before all the other words. So we are going to use sensory enrichment to talk to the brain of those children and help develop the connection towards the next step of speech, basically.
All right, so that's where I promised that we would look at where most kids are stuck, and you would spend a little bit of time showing how. Now you explained, we talked about vocalizing and how it's part of speech development, and we definitely do not want to slow them down by redirecting their vocalizing or trying to train them out of the vocalizing. What we want them is to train them through the vocalizing. So tell us, is there a game, an activity based on sensory enrichment that everybody can do safely, or some advice?
Well, there are two things. That one of them is definitely sensory enrichment based, and another one that is more about how to behave and how to converse with this child who is nonverbal.
I'm going to stop sharing my screen just for a second so people can see you with your hand gestures, because you're about to tell us something.
Yeah, well, sometimes I move my hand and I don't say something with them. I'm half Russian, lots of energy. So when we are at the stage where we are vocalizing, this kid is practicing and using his auditory system. So we want to be enriching the ability of the auditory system. One exercise that is really one of the favorite in children is to look at a cartoon. It's a piece of music written by the musician Prokofiev, and he created a story that is told by music instruments. There is no words, there is nothing to pay attention but
Peter and
listening.
the Wolf?
Yes, Peter and the Wolf. So I know that everybody can access that, and Disney, I don't know why I like Disney so much, created a cartoon. So now we have a visual, we have the auditory. So looking at the cartoon a little bit every day and gradually introduce the image, the picture of the instrument that's playing. So let's see the flute. We are not saying the words, but when the flute is up, here we show the picture. So what is happening is a very natural building of connection between the visual and the auditory system. What we know about the visual system of kids on the spectrum, children with autism, have an amazing, a fantastic visual system, way better than ours. The only issue is this fantastic visual system is poorly connected to the rest of the brain. So they are invaded by visual information, but they don't really know all the time what to do with it. So by creating this link, by simply listening and watching for 3 minutes a day, maybe twice a day, gradually we're building the connection. Remember that we help the brain mend. We are not mending the brain. We prompt an activity, and because it's happening every day, the brain is connecting the two. those new tools are tools for communication. Now there is a link between my mom's face, who doesn't look too happy, and the sound I hear, that is not the voice of someone who was very, very happy either. So we help the child build new ways to understand the environment. So that is a wonderful exercise that everybody can do tonight. Download or open it on YouTube and listen. It's really beautiful. It's a great musician who wrote that story. So that is pure sensory enrichment, enriching the environment with image and music.
Do you
The
want to do
second
any
one,
touch or smelling as part of it?
I will certainly do tactile with, but that is something if people who are not doing sensory enrichment right now and are starting tonight, they may not right away find the little spot where the kid enjoys touch. And we
Right.
have had already a webinar on the sense of touch. I recommend our families to go find it on the blog. There are things that you need to know. And
Yeah,
one
that's right. Yeah, I did
particularly,
say a safe one that everybody could try. Sure.
yes, yes, this one is perfect for everybody, for your young adults, for your anybody who has an issue and is nonverbal.
Do you
So
have
that is,
another activity you want to talk about, or do you want me to switch to the slides?
yeah, go to the slide because my next recommendation will be inside the slides. So we have a better image than me moving so much. So we are going to put more feeling when we talk to our child. There are two things that we're going to do. The first one is having the connection around something that your child can feel. I will give an example. If you tell your kid, okay, time to brush our teeth, and we will talk about how we speak to our kids in a minute, maybe you want to change that into, wow, look in the mirror. Your smile is gorgeous. Shall we make it shine? That is a different way to say go brush your teeth. It is an emotional, it is a visual, it is tender, and it is open, which is one of the things that we are going to teach you if you want to, or that you are going to try practicing, which is opening everything that you tell your kid. So I believe we'll have a slide coming up that will sort of tell us a few examples of how we talk and the child can hear but may not feel. So
Is this
what
the slide you're talking
well,
about?
it's a very good one, and I needed it for sure. I want the parents to be aware of all the elements of communication that you are transferring toward your kid. You are having a body posture, you have a facial expression, you have all these things that just make our language alive. It is what is called social language, and your kid is exposed to it at home, at school, and he may not be fully competent to understand all these. So as we are aware as adults, we are able to gradually teach our child what is a proper voice tone and how do we maybe touch briefly the hand of the person we are talking to. There are so many components to communication. It's not about just saying two very convenient words. Most kids who do a lot of therapies that are helpful come home with the ability to say, I want. And it's very important to be able to say, I want, because then you can have food or you can have a toy or you can have something that you want. But it's a bit sort of narrow. It is devoid of, well, fun, love, affection, which is what you give as parent to that child.
And to
So
be clear, what we were this slide here, the one with social language, voice tone, body posture, gestures, all of those are ones that they will struggle to develop and will be slow to develop. So, but you're talking about us using them in our communications with our children,
yes,
right?
yes. And gradually, if we realize, okay, this is a place where he's not understanding me, working on that. And this is one of the things we do when we coach the families. We are giving suggestions that help the child move on and grasp the element of social communication. So the difference between communication, conversation, and I like the word you picked, transactions. And this is the survey that I run on a regular basis with the families I work with. And I ask them, well, can you give me the 5 sentences that for sure you're going to tell your kid during the day, or 10, or maybe some parents have been nice and courageous. They have given me all what they told their kid during the day. When I listen or when I read those that you certainly have said at least once, one of those for sure you told your kid, you notice something. It is not conversational. It is more a bulletin of information. It is a menu. It is a weather forecast. What you notice here is it's completely closed. You give an information and the child is supposed to just go do it. And it does not really happen that way, because when we do our progress test, there is a question, how many reminders does he need or does she need? And parents do complain that, yeah, the child needs to be told, go put your shoes at least 5 times. What is wrong with that way of communicating? Well, for once, these are not things that your child will tell you. Maybe he would want to say, give me the iPad, but that won't work. So let's put ourselves in the shoes of that kid. And we have this giant who is giving us injunctions and orders or information. Do we feel like answering any of that? It is a truth that all parents around the world have noticed. The kid does not even budge, like, no, I'm not even here, does he think? It is not how we open up to conversation for a kid. Let's go back, like, for example, to this lovely little girl who was able in weeks doing sensory enrichment with a great coach who knew how to work with the parents, was able to express something very important. She just wanted to watch Peppa Pig. I have not seen the show, but I think I want to go and look at it because a lot of kids like it. So how do we transition? Well, the second advice, and I believe it will be on one of our slides, is speak naturally. This is also something that I would like you all, parents or professionals listening to this webinar, is to think about how you have spoken to that kid who's nonverbal the most recently. Or if you go into a classroom of children who are nonverbal and listen. Every adult is speaking very loud. I tend to say when I am in those situations, the child is not deaf. He just can't talk yet. And parents and professionals realize, oh, that is true. We are speaking very loud. So let's start with that. Just speak softly. First, it will be a big difference for the kid if you typically speak loud, and he will definitely look at you and say, what's going on? That's different. Speak to that child as if that child was going to answer you, and open up, as I said, with the different pieces of the bulletin. Go brush your teeth, put your shoes on, make it open. Speak softly, and every piece of communication you send toward the child, open it up so that your child is able either to respond right now, but at least to understand that communication is a two-way street. you say something and your child says something. So that is how things are going to change. You don't speak that loud. You open what you say. You expect your child to answer, and you give time to this child to answer because it takes time. And one example was Temple Grandin, who always says that her mom would speak very slowly, and gradually she was able to, oh yeah, I get it. So slow and softly, that's the tone of voice, that's a difference. So this is a step that we would like you to go through with your child. Make it a felt communication. Put emotions, put joy, put enthusiasm, put interrogation when you want to know, how was your day? Sometimes there is a way to say it that says, well, I asked the question, I know you're not going to answer, let's move on. It's just because parents are very busy. And if your child is nonverbal, your amount of work is enormous.
Yeah, and after 10 years of trying, there's a certain level of expectation that you've lost. And what we're hoping to bring with this is that it is possible to get to the point where they will interact. What is the percentage of children that we work with that are nonverbal and end up developing speech? I know it's not 100%, but what's realistic?
All the children will develop some communications because the adults also are changing how they run the conversation.
You mean they develop natural
communication? Yes, they will, absolutely. Recently, one little boy I worked with was very efficient in his communicating information. I need to go to my bedroom. I have to go and... So he was always on the go and having closed sentences. And recently, I think a week and some days ago, he came into the living room, laid down on the floor and said, I'm so happy. This is what we want, right? We want children who can express what is inside, share it with us, and we can share at the same time. I'm so happy you're happy. And maybe let's have dinner later, but let's all sit down on the carpet and enjoy that moment. So yes, we completely know that you are tremendously busy, but if we can help your child tell you what he needs or where it hurts, then you're going to save all that time in wondering, why is he crying, right?
I think, so this is what we wanted to share with you today. I'm going to go switch to the Q&A. I've got Kent on our team monitoring questions. Before we switch to that, I wanted to offer everybody who's listening, if you're thinking, hey, we'd like to try sensory enrichment therapy, we're going to send you an email at the end of this, so you don't have to write it down, but there's going to be an email coming from us with this webinar discount code. It's basically $50 off your first payment if you want to give this a try. But the other thing I think you should do at the end of this presentation is go to our website and take our 2-minute test. And in this test, you will score your child in various areas. And based on the scoring, we will come up with some sample activities that are safe for you to try outside of the context of a full enrichment therapy program. And it'll give you a sense of what it's like to do the therapy, a sense of how this new form of interaction and this new form of presenting the environment in a safe and stimulating way to your children can be. So this is the link. Again, you're going to get an email from us at the end of this webinar automatically as a result of having registered, and we'll give you those links. So I'm going to stop sharing the screen now so we can all see, and I'm going to go through the questions that you have sent us. So, starting at the top, how do I keep my child from screaming excessively and thinking it's funny? That's an interesting one.
Yeah, and I like the fact that you realize, mom or dad, that your child is playing with you. There is one efficient way to stop any of those little battles because, yes, screaming is tiring for you and it's tiring for all the neighbors on the street because most kids have a lot of power. So the first thing you will do is say something like, wow, you have such a beautiful voice, but I don't think I want to hear it right now. I'm going to go and lay down in my bedroom. Meaning, put the public out of the room. If your child is really playing a trick on you, not being a public is the best way to stop
Yeah,
that.
that's a parenting question, I guess. Is
Yeah.
there a enrichment related piece of advice you would give to this mother?
Well, when your child is not uh, putting his voice out, for example, during a meal, and we know that kids don't stay very long at a meal, but do play music. Music has a tremendous power on the brain. It's not just to make a beautiful environmental decor. It is really to change how the child's brain and your brain is functioning. Beautiful research is now out, and you can read it on PubMed. I'm always inviting parents to frequent a lot about the power of music on the brain. The two things we know for sure that will happen is an increase of serotonin and dopamine in the brain. That is what research says. Your child with more of those two messengers in the brain will be able to figure out other ways to be funny and will enjoy life better than just being so tired of screaming all day.
Awesome, thank you. Here's the next one. Have you advice for someone whose child is deaf and is at a limited stage of sign language? Has many signs, maybe hundreds, but only uses one or two together. I hadn't thought of this. Sign language versus spoken language limitations. How does that develop? Anyway,
Yes,
sorry.
the fact that the child is deaf is not systematically saying that the child doesn't have good fine motor. Fine motor deficits are related to verbal deficit. In this case, this child doesn't have a verbal deficit. He cannot imitate because he does not hear. So that would be also probably some sort of a parenting advice. And I would certainly I would love to help that mom or that dad to figure ways for the child to want to communicate more, and probably yourself communicate more than just the two or three that he's using, expanding and praising. It's complicated to start sign language, but what deaf people have told me in their way is it's not a world of words. It's a world of image, of a vibration, facial expression and body expression. It's a very different world. So you have maybe to learn to be part of that world that communicates a lot with your face, with your eyes, with your hands and your body postures. Show and be there. Don't just expect words from in signs. There is so much more that you need to share with this kid.
Thank you. Here's the next one. This one's from Hissam. Sorry if I butchered your name. She asks, or he asks, wow, I don't even know the gender. Hello, thanks for the webinar. My 4-year-old autistic nonverbal son does not speak a word, but sometimes recently, when I, as his dad, leave home, he starts crying and for half an hour calls Abba, calls me
Oh,
Abba.
yeah,
His
that's
mom
amazing.
says, always waits and looks for you. And when I come back home from work, again he cries, it may be why you did not take me with you.
Mm,
He loves riding in the car for 2 hours at least. Sometimes when he's crying and sad, even if I'm home. He's sad for not having to eat food. He calls Abba.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a beautiful word, which is papa in Indian, or daddy. Um, Definitely this child is communicating a lot, and you understand this child. So it's a beautiful situation where you want to uh, converse with this child. Go in a quiet place, maybe behind a curtain or behind the couch, hold his hand, touch his face, and tell him how much you love him, and use that soft voice I was talking about. This child is expressing a lot. So express in return. Crying is a way of saying I'm sad or I'm tired, but if he's able to say Abba, he can say a lot more. So that's where you start the conversation style that we teach you. And if you are with Mandability, tell your coach to explain to you what is conversation time.
That's a good one. Please repeat what stage is spitting. I have a student who raises his head and spits. He does it when he is happy or frustrated.
Well, think about the typical development in infants. And when they start to have blue raspberries and parents are, oh, it is so cute. Well, transpose that. This is where this kid is. So that would be maybe the second stage of development of speech.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's fun, because it has little colors in the sunshine. He is just enjoying the moment. The next stage, unfortunately, is also something that the family or the adults will not enjoy, which is hands in the mouth and
And
objects
biting,
in the
yeah.
mouth. Yeah, so help the child by not trying to stop the spitting, because that's usually how, and we said it, how children stay stuck, because we acknowledge the situation, and maybe talk with the therapists who are working with this child and mention, okay, we are on the second level of communication. Can you help the child to move through 3 and 4? Usually this is the start of the words. So not mentioning it and working with the team who is around the kid to move through discovery with the hands. This is where I would advise, if the family was doing sensory enrichment, ideas to inform the fingers, inform the toes, so that there's not a specific need to put the hands on the mouth. So that would be a good way to do it.
Thank you. There's lots more questions coming in, and I know we're getting close to the hour, so we'll try and go as quickly as possible. I have an older child who is 14 with Angelman Syndrome, and we have been told speech may never happen, although she's very vocal and bites anything and everyone. Do you feel, even though neurotypically she shouldn't speak, she may have words in future?
Yeah. If your child is chewing, she is biting, so that's a good information. She has the motor ability to speak. She is breathing. There is not really a mechanical issue that would say she will not. She's at the biting stage. Okay, let's move on. She's definitely progressing towards speech. Talk to this girl. Just, it's not a matter of age. It's a matter of, let's move and let's have conversation again, and use the sensory system to help her select one activity in her brain that can be improved. The auditory, I mentioned music. I have seen so many girls, I didn't see guys, but girls with Angelman who were perfectly verbal. And they have this magic about them to just put happiness around them. They have this wonderful smile. They almost never complain. So they are wonderful people to work with. Start and maybe work on fine motor to help her go through the next stage. I can't see why she would not be able to speak with you at some point.
I mean, it's easy for us to say because,
Yeah.
we have this whole enrichment program that helps the brain develop.
Yeah.
What is the music name? I'll just read it quickly. It's Peter and the Wolf by Prokofiev. Can you please read the same music again? Can you give some examples? It would be very helpful to start with a few examples. I guess, well, this was given, I think we've given examples now. Maybe we'll finish with an example if we have a few minutes. But if you're looking for additional examples, our website has examples. Our YouTube channel has examples of exercises. If you do this 2-minute test I mentioned earlier, we'll give you 2 or 3 of those examples with tips and videos. What is the name of the video referenced? Yikes, I don't know what context this was. I'm not sure, sorry. Will you be putting a link on the resources for the activities? I'm not sure if I heard for the first activity. What? Yes, what do we, yes, we're going to transcribe this webinar. This is being recorded. And so we'll put all of this into a blog where you can watch the video and read and see the videos and links and resources. Yes, we're definitely doing that.
And as you are going to bring a new question, something that's important for me is to also pass along the research upon which I built what I know and what I dare to say. In particular, my comments with Angelman Syndrome. There is such a fabulous amount of knowledge today that if you wish to read those articles, don't hesitate to ask, and we will send you the bibliography.
Here's another question. I tried the therapy 3 years ago. My son would not do the homework with me. Is there a solution for that? Are there therapists who could do it with him? Yes and no, depending on where you live. If you have professionals living in your area interested in certifying in sensory enrichment therapy, we have an online certification program. It takes about 10 hours to complete, provided you have already the foundation being a health professional. It's on our website at mentability.com/pro. Next question. Can sensory enrichment therapy help a child that is very vocal but doesn't have any words? So I guess that's the vocalizing stage again. And the short answer is yes.
Yes.
For the sake of
going
through the next questions, that's all we will say about that. How to address a kid who speaks very softly, almost inaudibly. A good one.
Yeah, and I put my immediate suggestion that is not a specific exercise. We have exercises to help this situation where the child doesn't have enough maybe energy for all kinds of reasons to push air through the vocal cords. So we would have exercises for that, and in the meantime, music will be a friend. That will help the child work his auditory system so that he will hear himself better, will be able to really understand the amount of sound needed. So music is always a place where to go for speech.
Radhika asks, I do think my son knows what to say, but he's unable to say it due to verbal dyspraxia. Can sensory enrichment help my son? Again, we've got half a dozen questions coming, so I'm going to say absolutely.
And I'll give an example because there is a very recent research that basically sat down with teenagers, nonverbal, qualified severe autistic, and they were able to express what they think about what people think of them. Your child understands everything. There's not one reason that would be able to tell us the opposite. So trust that, because he will talk or she will talk, but there's a need for help, and there are things that we can do. So as Kim said, yes.
Yeah, actually, I have a feeling that fine motor exercises would help this particular situation. It's usually what we do, right? I mean, we do some base work. And again, the 2-minute test, if you score speech as your worst area, I think you will end up with an exercise that will be useful. My 2.5-year-old daughter is very emotionally sensitive, cries and gets upset at the littlest things, like, no, please don't step on your new toy kitchen, or there's no more strawberries. Then she cries and bursts into tears. How do I help her? This is a question from Mia.
Well, I would give a neurological answer to that. It feels like a little girl who does not produce enough of what I spoke about, serotonin, which is one of the messengers in the brain. I would certainly start to boost her by smelling a lot of beautiful things. It doesn't need to be something specific. You can have a peel of an orange or cut off a slice of cucumber. Work on improving serotonin and dopamine so that she can balance what is happening to her, and she can definitely take a distance from things and not be so sad. So helping her brain get stronger to process what's happening to her.
When this is a question from Pamela. When we're conversing, quote, with our nonverbal child, and they make a sound in response, do we pretend we understand the meaning and keep the conversation going, or?
Yeah, the answer would be more or less. Your child knows what you tried to say, and he's probably aware that doesn't sound really like something you would understand. So you praise a lot for trying. You do not ask for repeating, because if the kid could say it properly, he would have said it the first time. This is what he can say now. You just are ecstatic. You tell him, well, I'm not too sure I get it, but I'm so proud of you for trying. And then he's encouraged and will keep on answering. And other exercises, if you want to participate in the sensory enrichment, will help develop that. But for that kid, for sure, we would have fine motor exercises.
Mm-hmm. Selma asks, how would you improve fine motor if it's related to verbal deficits?
There are all kinds of exercises. The concept is we want to give more connectivity to the hand or to the toes. We do things with the toes as well. So we have tactile information. We have little exercises like the bird and the bird talking to the bird, all kinds of things that we try to make fun that will develop a larger amount of connections related to the hand. What the brain does when there is an overpopulation in an area in a function and there's not a need for all that, there is a beautiful principle, look for it in PubMed, which is called migration. And the extra neurons will migrate towards the areas where there's a need. It's a spontaneous situation. We don't make it happen. It's just we help the brain build up, and then the brain does the job. It's been possible to follow some of those neurons and with markers on those specific cells and find them in a part of the body where there was a need for a healthy cell. So that's the principle we want to follow with fine motor.
Pamela asks, how do we support our children from moving beyond the one word? You know, like there's a boy saying Abba. In her case, she's saying her son says mo for more. How do you move from one word to multiple words? Do you have a quick answer for this one? Because it's 1:59.
Yes, a quick
And there's two
answer
more
is
questions. So I think what we will do is take time to provide answers. We will email you those answers. Maybe what we'll do, I'm thinking about here, but maybe we'll share all those answers, those Q&A as part of the article that we will publish when we transcribe and post the replay for this video. Thank you so much, everybody. We know you're super, super busy, and so thank you for coming, and we'll see you next time. Have a great day.
Bye-bye, everybody.
Goodbye.